Pavitra, I sent a link, YouTube link to your WhatsApp.
Okay, ma'am. I seen, ma'am. I will share it, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, one and all. For international webinar on nurses' role in developing resilience and taking part in clinical research and protecting older adults during the COVID-19. Now, I request Mrs. G. Tejavati, Assistant Professor, Sri Vidyaniketan College of Nursing, to address the gathering. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Divya. A very good morning to everyone who present here. With warm greetings, it gives me great pleasure to extend a welcome behalf of Sri Vidyaniketan College of Nursing. I am Tejavati, Assistant Professor in such a esteemed institution, act as a coordinator and host of this international webinar. First of all, I appreciate your interest in exploring the opportunities in this lockdown period by joining our international webinar on developing resilience, taking part in clinical research, and protecting older adults during COVID-19. Organized by Sri Vidyaniketan College of Nursing. A dream does not become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. Yes, it's believed and adored by our principal. She has always been source of information and motivation. It's my privilege to welcome our principal, Dr. S. Anuradha Garu. Welcome you, ma'am. We are honored to have with us today Dr. Sujay Lakshmi Devaraya Samudram, Assistant Professor, North Carolina Central University, USA. Mrs. Lily A. Hill, CEO, Health Education Solutions, USA. Ms. Vijay Chadaram, retired clinical trials operation manager, Duke University, USA. Success is not a key to happiness, but happiness is a key to success. With this great quote in this occasion, on behalf of Sri Vidyaniketan College of Nursing, I am proud to welcome today's speakers, Mrs. Lily A. Hill ma'am and Mr. Vijay Chadaram ma'am. Welcome you ma'am. I would like to welcome all faculty from various nursing institutions and staff nurses of various hospitals. I welcome organizing committee and I appreciate their efforts for this international webinar. Welcome you. Last but not least, without participants, nothing will happen. From my bottom of heart, I welcome all my dear students of various nursing institutions. Welcome you. Once again, a warm welcome to distinguished guests. Thank you, ma'am. Over to Divya.
Thank you, ma'am. So now I would like to call upon our Principal Madam Dr. S. Anuradha, Sri Vidyaniketan College of Nursing, to introduce today's session one speaker. Please, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I am really honored to read out the theme of this event. As all of us know that the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak is a unique and unprecedented scenario for many health workers. Nurses are pivotal to the healthcare response to infectious diseases, pandemics, and epidemics. Nurses have been reported to experience stress and anxiety during this pandemic, which are associated with separation from family, sleep deprivation, heavy workloads created by health system demand, and staff shortage. The Additionally, the ethical and resource issues that emerge during this pandemic can have negative psychological impacts. The significant impact of nurses' experiences highlights a need for strategies around self care and ongoing support to ensure the health of nurses is maintained. To date, there is limited clinical research nursing. So, understanding the experiences and impacts of pandemic on nurses is vital to ensure that these essential health workers are well supported to remain in the workforce and facilitated to provide high quality health care during the time of elevated health need in the community. As we all know that older adults are at higher risk for novel coronavirus, especially who are in isolation, may become more anxious and stressed during the outbreak. So they need practical and emotional support through the health professionals. I hope this webinar provides an incredible stage towards a broad spectrum of in-depth learning opportunities regarding care of geriatrics and exploring most recent scientific discoveries in the field of nursing. The speakers will share their expertise in scope of nursing research. The webinar will serve as a great platform for the nursing students, staff nurses, and faculty to bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical experience. I wish you all the best, and I hope you are all enjoying all these sessions. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I convey my regards to the today's speakers, and now I would like to invite Mrs. Lily A. Hill, madam, to take the session. Please, ma'am.
Profile.
Now I request our principal, madam, to read out the profile of today's session one speaker, Mrs. A. Lily Hill, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
Good morning, madam. I feel it honored to read out the profile of Mrs. Lily Hill. Mrs. Hill obtained a bachelor's degree in nursing at Barton in Wilson, North Carolina, and a master's degree with a double major of adult health and geriatrics from Duke University Schools of Nursing in Durham, North Carolina. In addition to this, Mrs. Hill is certified as a health and wellness coach through the National Society of Certified Health Coaches. Mrs. Hill has been in the field of nursing education for over 23 years after serving in the role of preceptor, assistant nurse manager, and nurse coordinator. She has had the opportunity to mentor and educate nursing students as well as registered nurses, all the while instilling integrity, compassion, and caring. Lily is involved with various committees and has served as a president-elect of the Pi chapter of Sigma Theta Tau, National Nursing Honor Society. Also, she has earned numerous awards, including the Excellence in Faculty Teaching Awards 2011 from Durham Technical Community College, where she currently works as the Student Success Specialist in the Associate Degree Nursing Program. Mrs. Hill is the CEO and owner of Health Education Solutions Inc., a company that was established to help improve the health of the community through the vehicle of education. She specializes in adult wellness, caring for the elderly, and in educating nurses. On solutions to burnout and compassion fatigue. Lily believes that the best method to create a lasting change in the healthcare experience of the elderly and minority populations was to educate the next generation of nurses. Mrs. Hill is dedicated to her students, patients, and church community. Nursing has been a wonderful vehicle that has allowed her to have a voice and to make an impact on the lives of those she serves. Mrs. Hill has been blessed to be able to share these gifts with whomsoever she comes into contact with her. Thank you, madam. I'm very grateful to you for inciting us, for enlightening us with your great experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Now I convey my regards to today's speakers, Lily A. Hill, ma'am. Now I request Lily A. Hill, ma'am, to take the session. Please, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to just say how honored I am to be a part of this important series. So thank you so much to Dr. Sujaya. And first of all, thank you to Dr. ANURADHA for inviting me to be a part of this. Um, it is so important for us because as nurses, nursing faculty, we have been deemed essential employees. We're essential to the healthcare of others. We're essential to our families, to our jobs, to our friends. But first of all, I want you to understand how essential you are to yourself. So I'm not just speaking to a group of individuals. I'm speaking to my colleagues, my friends, other team members. We have to understand how important we are to ourselves and how important our health is to ourselves. Since this global pandemic, life has changed. It is certainly looks different than what it used to appear. I've been a nurse for over 30 years, and of course, I've never seen the impact and changes that we have at this time. And I'm sure internationally, it looks as well. So, topic for me tonight is to talk about our role as nurses and developing our own resilience, as well as developing overcoming compassion fatigue and those types of things that come up in our lives. As nurses and nursing faculty, we already had numerous areas of stress, just ensuring that our students are successful, ensuring that we are meeting the benchmarks that we have. And then when we look at hospitals, we're looking at nursing shortages. We're looking at our patients being sicker, there being a higher acuity level of our patients. So there was stress before COVID-19. Now that we have this COVID-19, this pandemic, as well as other things that are going on in the world, racial tensions, political upheaval, and so forth, we can't proceed in the same way. We have to change in order to build our own resilience, in order to continue to care and take care of others. So with that being said, I would like to move forward. I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to talk about how to start being more resilient. As nurses, as I said before, we are so important in our resilience. And of course, being a nursing instructor, I wouldn't do justice to my job if I did not have some objectives for what we're doing. So after this, I want you to be able to define stress, compassion, fatigue, and resilience. What is that and what does that look like? We're going to look at 8 areas of health and wellness, and I'll talk more about that and how that fits. We're also going to look at selecting a particular area of health and wellness that needs the most work in your life. And we'll look at developing interventions for your personal wellness. And finally, examine strategies that are designed to rebuild resilience due to COVID-19 and all of the other issues that, that are going on in the world at this moment. So as I was talking before, there were and are things that cause multiple stressors in our lives and in the lives of nursing students as a faculty and so forth. So to first dig in, we have to look at stress. Stress is experienced, no doubt, in our roles, in hospital roles, in the role of nursing, and if it can be unchecked and not addressed, it certainly can lead to unbalanced and more unhealthy lifestyles for us. That's where we see the burnout and the other kind of issues. Some of the stresses that we experience as faculty, and I'm sure you can agree with this, is that when COVID-19 first started, we immediately had to disband meeting on campus and all of our courses went online. So those of us who hadn't taught online that frequently now had to consistently teach online, consistently have virtual clinicals. How do you do clinicals, teaching hands-on types of skills virtually and do that effectively? We also had to create meaningful assignments for our students to ensure that they were still learning at a pace and not missing anything. Not to mention our own personal looking at infection control and care for our own personal self as we're moving along. So there was lots of stressors that we've had to deal with. Okay. So with stress, Even nursing students, you guys are not immune to that. In nursing school, you are constantly juggling things. You're juggling your friends. When do you get to go out and spend time with your friends? You may not get to do that as much because you're studying for nursing exams. When do you get prepared for clinicals? Are you prepared for clinicals? School, you're constantly in lecture. You're constantly having to learn and read things. Okay. Um, for those of you who attend church, when do you put that in? And family. Family often don't understand the amount of time that goes into studying for nursing school. So there was stress already incorporated into nursing school, and there wasn't much time for fun. As a student, you can't just let any of these balls drop. If you let one drop, you're out of balance. So it's important to see that piece as well. So what I want to talk about then is stress. We've already had stress, and stress has now been increased because of what we're dealing with COVID-19 and the restrictions that have been put in place. Stress in and of itself is a state. It's emotional strain, mental strain, tension that occurs because of our demanding circumstances. And stress itself, if it's not dealt with, can relieve to some burnout. Okay. And we certainly need some therapeutic areas there in order to fix that burnout. So when we're talking about stress, it's important to understand that stress shows up in four different dimensions in the body, mind, behavior, and the emotions. From a physical standpoint, you may begin to have headaches from this extra stress. You may have excessive fatigue and feel like you can't catch your breath at times. Okay. From the mental standpoint, you're worried, your thinking and judgment becomes impaired. And you don't often make the best decisions when you're stressed. You may decide, oh, I'm going to cram the night before for this exam, which is not the best decision when you're studying for a nursing exam. So you may have some impaired judgment there. Some other things that happen from a behavioral standpoint is you may become accident prone. You find yourself dropping books, or you find yourself tripping, or you find yourself doing things that were not a part of your activities prior to. Also, sometimes individuals start behaviors that aren't as good, such as smoking and beginning to drink alcohol. Those types of behaviors show up. Okay. From an emotional standpoint, we also sometimes see depression and irritability. So stress shows up in quite a few different ways. And as I said before, if stress is unrelieved, it then can develop into burnout. Now, the dictionary tends to define burnout as a state of emotional, physical, mental exhaustion. And all of these are caused by prolonged stress. So stress in and of itself is not bad. However, if it's prolonged and unrelieved, it then can move towards burnout. And burnout is a whole different ball of wax. Okay. It is that overwhelming emotional inability to cope. Okay. In studies, we found that one half of all physicians in the United States experience symptoms of burnout. One half of all physicians. That's just physicians. That doesn't take into account the nurses, the other healthcare, allied healthcare individuals who are there. Oftentimes, the degree of burnout that is experienced by the surgeons and physicians that correlates with major medical errors. Similar to that, burnout among nurses is also very high. At least 1/3 of the nurses in the United States complain of burnout, okay, and the symptoms of burnout. When you have nurses who are experiencing burnout, you tend to have higher rates of patient mortality, patient death, of course, higher rates of transmission-based infections. So basically, burnout will affect the quality of nursing care that we give, okay? Burnout also affects how you perform in nursing school. Burnout affects your grades. It affects how you perform in clinical, okay? Along with burnout is something called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is rather similar, but it's a bit different in that compassion fatigue pretty much is defined as an individual who is overworked, overburdened, but is related to trauma, and they're exposed to trauma repeatedly over and over again. It doesn't have to be their trauma, it's a trauma of someone else. And because of that continued exposure, then there's more issues. So briefly, I have a video I'd like to show you about compassion fatigue, and that'll give you a little bit more detail.
I'm used to taking care of people who are very sick. There are patients on ventilators, even in the hallways. We don't always have enough trained nurses. This is really overwhelming. At times, I feel like I can't do it anymore.
Some days are better than others. Today, I felt anxious and nervous, and I couldn't stop thinking about how sick my patients are.
Am I even making a difference? I did all I could for her, and she still died. She was alone when she died. His family are not allowed in the hospital. Now I have to call them with the tragic news.
5 patients died in my unit today. I can't believe that. I feel numb.
Compassion fatigue can happen to anyone, but the people who seem to be most at risk are those healthcare workers who care day after day for patients who are struggling with significant symptoms. Compassion fatigue is not burnout and is not simply about being overworked. It comes about from the stress of being exposed to trauma. Healthcare workers who are regularly exposed to traumatic situations through their day-to-day work treating others can overload their ability to cope and experience compassion fatigue. This experience includes both mental and physical exhaustion and can cause those that experience it to have intensive trouble coping with everyday life experiences. As a provider, empathy might be one of your most valuable skills. It's also the same trait that can make you vulnerable to the experiences of your patients. You may find yourself suddenly feeling exhausted, frustrated, or sad. Thoughts and feelings may become overwhelming, cognitive functioning can be impaired, and you might feel completely lost when you used to feel the most confident. Providers are especially vulnerable during disasters or pandemics like COVID-19. When they are working longer hours, losing more patients than usual, supporting patients through tough emotional responses to the crisis, and generally working in a more stressful environment, providers can protect themselves and build resilience by keeping a few simple things in mind. Be with other professionals. Social support among colleagues is a protective factor for providers. It allows you to feel connected with peers, as well as seek consultation, or even just the chance to vent. Isolation is a risk factor and a warning sign for compassion fatigue, and staying connected with others reduces its likelihood and severity. Choose optimism. An optimistic outlook is protective against compassion fatigue, as well as many stress-related health consequences. One exercise that promotes optimism is writing a gratitude log. Once a day, write down 3 things to be grateful for. It works. Make time for self-care. In a busy office, clinic, or hospital, you may only have 5 free minutes at a time. Use those minutes wisely to care for yourself. Everyone's favorite activities are different. You might feel best when you listen to music, journal, meditate for a few minutes, pray, or read. Any of these and others can protect you from the effects of difficult work. Compassion fatigue is a risk for any medical or mental health provider and affects the ability to provide outstanding care to your patients. Providers can help protect against the effects of this experience by putting a few simple practices in their day-to-day routine. Your work is so important, and so are you. Self-care isn't selfish, it's just good practice.
last statement is such an important one, that self-care is not selfish. It is just good practice. It's something that we need to um, participate in, because us as providers, as nurses at the bedside, we are needed. So self-care is something that we're going to talk about. Self-care is also one of the keys to help reestablishing our resilience. So, as we move forward, it's really important to understand our definitions: health, wellness, and resilience. Health and wellness oftentimes have been used interchangeably, but not necessarily mean the same thing. Health generally has to do with whether the disease is present or not present. Okay, an individual can have a disease process but still be healthy or deemed as healthy. Health is more so an ever changing process. It moves along a continuum. Someone can have a disease process, but still can operate in their environment. Or because of the illness that they're experiencing, they may need some assistance. Wellness is more so defined as the optimal level that a person can achieve within their health or their health dimensions. So someone could be ill for whatever reason, but because they're still able to live independently, shop for themselves, take care of their life's issues or their life's goals that they need to achieve, they could be at the highest level of wellness. So wellness is looked at more so as having the highest level of health. So how does resilience play into that? Resilience is pretty much defined as a process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or other significant sources of stress. And that's by the American Psychological Association. Being able to adapt well. And I really like the way they put that: adapt well in the face of adversity. And that's what we're going to talk about. How do we adapt well in the face of COVID-19? How do we adapt well in the face of compassion fatigue and so forth? The way I like to address those is by looking at other areas of wellness. Now, what I'd like to introduce you to is something called ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese word that means the meaning of life or passion of life. It is that one thing that drives you, that has you getting up in the morning excited about moving forward. Ikigai is set up within 4 parameters with 4 questions. It asks you, what do you love? What the world needs? What can you be paid for? And what are you good at? At the center of those 4 questions, there are 4 categories, 4 intersecting categories that help you determine where you should be. Those categories are passion. Passion intersects with what you're good at and what you love. Mission, it intersects between what the world needs and what you love. Vocation intersects with what the world needs and what you can be paid for. And your profession intersects of what you're good at and what you can be paid for. So passion, profession, mission, and vocation are all pieces of the ikigai and things that we need to look forward to. Now, ikigai again is a word that really talks about the meaning of life, and it is a Japanese word. It is interesting in my research and finding this. It says that in Okinawa, Japan, where ikigai is practiced, they have the highest number of octogenarians in the world, individuals who are aged between 80 and 89 years of age. So they practice ikigai, and therefore we're seeing some long life there. That's one way of building our resilience, by practicing the idea of ikigai. The other way of establishing resilience is looking at the 8 dimensions of wellness. Those 8 dimensions include emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, and occupational, and social. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through these 8 dimensions. We as human beings are so multidimensional. We aren't just for food. We're just not biological. We are emotional. We have so many things going on. So there are other dimensions that we have to look at in order to establish our wellness. And if we're out of balance in any of these areas, then it can cause us to have that burnout. It can cause us to have that compassion fatigue. So as part of our self-care, we have to, number one, understand these areas of wellness, these 8 dimensions. and practice balance in those areas. So let's take a look at these areas. The first area is physical wellness. Now, when you think of physical wellness, most people start thinking about exercising, going to the gym, and so forth. Um, that is included. However, wellness can be achieved in a couple other ways as also. Wellness from a physical standpoint involves all of your health parameters. This is when you need to go to your physician, have your cholesterol and those kind of levels checked, having your weight checked, having your annual physicals. Also, it looks at your health promotion kind of things, getting your TB test done, which we need for nursing school and hospitals, pneumonia and flu vaccines, flu being very important, that vaccine important and coming into this season of the year and dealing with COVID-19. Also, eating healthy fruits and vegetables and drinking water and drinking green tea. Those things also fit into our physical wellness. We want our bodies to be as healthy as possible so that we can have that optimal health and functioning. So, in order to be resilient in the physical wellness, you look at all of those different areas. Next area is our social wellness. Social dimension is all about building and sustaining positive relationships with our coworkers, with other students in our classmates, colleges, and friends. It's about an individual relationship with somebody who knows you and possibly loves you just the same. That's a quote by Albert Hubert. To build resilience, you need to have trusted people in your life. Who is that person that you can tell that secret to? Who is that faculty member that you can go to and talk to them about your concerns with going to clinical or your concerns in class? Who on the administrative team can you go and sit and talk with and talk about having to prepare your lectures, about things that's going on at the hospital? Social wellness is important that you have somebody that you can rely on. When you find yourself feeling drained after having a conversation, people around you who are constantly criticizing, or folks who are expecting entirely too much of you, perhaps those are people who don't need to be in your atmosphere. They are not part of your social wellness. So think about spending more time with individuals who lift you up, folks who encourage you. There's a saying that you have to be mindful of the company that you keep because that company is a reflection on you. So be around people who encourage you and lift you up. And another thing is emotional wellness. Emotional wellness equates mental wellness. And when we have mental wellness, it is absolutely the ability to express our emotions and to be okay with that, to have confidence and peace that we can express when we're sad, we can express when we're angry, we can express not being happy about that test grade that we got or a particular issue that may be occurring in our lives. It is okay not to be okay. So we have to let people know that. So with our emotional wellness, some of the things that you can do there to prevent holding in anger and hurt is to take a day off, take a mental health day, take a day off from studying, but get right back to it. Also, have that safe space. Is there a safe space in your work environment where you can go and just be quiet and where you can meditate and where you can bring things back in? You also can schedule your own self-care for your emotional wellness. Schedule a time to go off and take care of yourself. Okay. So emotional wellness is very important as well. Occupational wellness is another dimension. That occupational wellness is the ability to be fulfilled in your profession or your occupation. That's the time when you take stock in, okay, what is it that I'm doing? Do I enjoy what I'm doing? And if not, what other steps can I take for that? Now, it's about being involved in those activities that bring you joy, that shows your skill set and you enjoy it. What we found doing my research, especially in 2018, about 42% of doctors reported burnout, and 39% of those same physicians reported depression. And sad to say, about 400 of those physicians commit suicide every year. In the light of COVID-19, those numbers are increasing with the burnout. And as we're looking at those numbers, we know that the numbers for nurses are along within those same lines, and it's increasing due to this burnout, due to what we're experiencing. So we really want to be looking at the resilience here and how to bring that resilience back. Duke University Medical Center has started a collaborative where they're talking about well-being and resilience collaborative. And it focuses on providing resources for resilience and best practices for resilience. So there's lots of healthcare facilities out there who are looking at keeping their staff well, their nurses, their physicians, and everybody who's in that space. Okay. So occupational wellness is very important. Financial wellness is another aspect of it. And right now, in the United States, what we've seen is a lot of individuals have lost their jobs. They've lost the ability to be employed. So financial impact has become very important. So with financial wellness, basically what they're saying is have an overall view of what your financial picture looks like. What does your student loan picture look like if you happen to have student loans? Here may be a time to start having a budget, budgeting your self-care time, budgeting for that fun food, budgeting to help reduce some of the your debt structure, because just being in debt oftentimes can bring on some stress and anxiety as well, and it does not help with our resilience. Environmental wellness is an issue. Being aware of your interactions with the environment and how you feel within that environment. What things can you do to enjoy the environment that you're in? Can you bring in more plants into your office? Or can you hang up more pictures in the student lounge or in other areas? Um, Pictures that have natural landscapes like ocean scenes, forest scenes, and those kind of things. What does it look like? Pick up your area. Is it clean in that area? Make sure you're adding green plants. Okay. Make sure still that you're social distancing in those spaces. Okay. But make sure you're bringing in as much sunlight and working in such a way that your environment is pleasant for you. That's how you bring resilience to your environmental area. Okay. Spiritual wellness is an important facet. When we look at a spiritual wellness, we are looking at things that pay attention to your core values. What are your core values, and are you operating in line with those core values? If you are operating with those guiding beliefs and principles, this helps give a sense of direction. All of us needs a sense of direction. And values, they can fluctuate depending on where we are in life and what our environment happens to be. But values such as caring, such as having integrity, such as having discipline, those values typically do not change. So you want to make sure you identify your core values and then act in such a way that you're aligned with those values. That helps keeps balance and alignment and also brings resilience. Ways that you can do that is to pray and meditate. Okay. Donate or volunteer in the community. Have a blood pressure drive if we can, and among the social distancing. Compliment someone else or volunteer and help someone else. Bring food for someone else. Create a care package box. At one of the schools on which I worked at previously, the staff created a just because box. And this box was set up for students that had food, snacks, female products, other products, those kind of things in this box. So if a student had a need, they could come to this box and find exactly what they needed. And just having this box, the faculty felt good volunteering and keeping this box supplied because it was something that was valuable to the student. And it showed that how we as faculty cared for the student. So participate in other things and other ways of giving. Okay. And our last one, areas to mention, is intellectual wellness. Intellectual wellness deals with creativity and thinking and our mind moving and growing. Now, I know as you nursing students, you're probably already thinking that I am being intellectual all the time because I'm having to study, I'm having to read, I'm having to take in all of this information. However, there are times when we need to take in something fun. Read a book that has nothing to do with medicine or nursing. You want to be creative because if we don't continue to stimulate our brain, it sets into an old pattern or old routine. You get up day after day, get dressed, go to work, go to school, read, study, may take a test. As teachers, we grade papers, we go home, may have TV, eat, sleep, get up the next day and do it all over again. What can you do to continue to stimulate your brain and revive that resilience? You can do puzzles. Start doing puzzles. Read something for fun. Paint something. Be creative. Create poems. Okay. Go explore a new area of your town. Of course, keep your mask on and social distance, but go explore something new if you can go into that area. Okay. You have to continue to feed your brain. So by now, as I've gone through these 8 dimensions of wellness, one theme should show up, that your cup will be empty because you're pouring out more than you poured in. You have to refill that cup. We have to look at ways of building that resilience. So, how do we do that? How do we change our health behaviors and look at our resilience? First of all, we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. As healthcare providers ourselves, we're sometimes the last ones who's going to go and seek help because we know all the signs and symptoms, so we self treat. And that's not always the best. So sometimes we just need to acknowledge that there is a problem. Once we identify the problem or the problem areas, we then can prioritize those different things. Now, if we look at a skills behavior checklist, I want you to take a quick look at this list. Do you get a good night's sleep? This helps us to identify our errors and our problems by looking at a checklist. Do you maintain healthy eating habits? Participate in physical recreational activities. That's how you can get that physical wellness in. We can jog or bowl or do work in a garden, do something physical. Okay. We can control real and imaginary stressors or try to control real and imaginary stressors. In the age of COVID-19 that we're having, our minds can be all over the place, thinking what can happen next. Where's the virus? This person's not wearing a mask. I might contract something. Try and control those kind of stressors because that is not healthy for us. We definitely must maintain meaningful relationships with our families and friends. And do you make time for yourself and being kind to others? During this season of extra stress, it is important to be kind to others and value each day and make the best of those opportunities. So you look at a checklist and decide, okay, if I'm not doing enough of valuing each day, I'm not controlling my stressors, then it's time to do something with that. Okay. So having discussed the 8 dimensions of wellness, you can easily look at, all right, which of these dimensions do I have the most problem? Or should I fix first? Environment may not be that big of an issue because you got a nursing building or you may have home environment. So it may not be as big of an issue to you, but the emotional stress that you're dealing with, the emotional separation that you may feel right now, it could be quite important. So that may need to be the first one. So what you would do is you would number each one of these dimensions 1 through 8, with 1 being the most important and 8 being less important. Prioritize these. Which one would you give a 1? Which one would you give an 8? Prioritize them. Once you prioritize, then that gives you a target, something to look for and work with. So once you've selected your area of wellness that you want to work with, then it's time to decide, what is my long-term goal? What is the outcome that I'm seeking here? Okay. What obstacles might I encounter? And what strategies can I use to overcome those obstacles? Most of the time when you set a goal or your mindset of what you want to achieve, something else may come up. You need to have a plan B. How am I going to overcome those types of obstacles? Other questions you will have, what resources do you have? Is it financial resources, human resources? What other resources might you have in order to achieve this goal? How will you reward yourself when you've achieved this goal? Rewards often motivate us to go ahead and achieve those goals. So how would you reward yourself? Who can act as your accountability partner? That's that one friend who will constantly keep you motivated, who will let you know you're getting kind of cranky and you haven't had self-care for a while. Maybe you need to go and meditate. Maybe you need to go and pray. Okay, who's your accountability partner? And most importantly, what is your start date for your wellness journey? If you don't put a start date on it, then it's just a wish. You really need to start with a date. Now, for all of our nursing students out there, when you're setting a goal for your health and resilience, our goals, we like for them to be SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If these parameters aren't there, then that goal might not be in such a way that we can reach them. So I want to share with you my wellness goals, emotional wellness, just to show you how to walk through this. My goal is that I'm going to take time for my emotional needs at least once a week. This is to help build my resilience as a faculty member, as a nurse, but also as a mom, as a wife, as an employee, and as a business owner. Is this measurable for me? Yes, I can do this. It's measurable. Is it achievable? Yes, I can achieve it if I have the right mindset and I have the support that I need. Is this goal going to be realistic? Yes, it's realistic because I like green tea and I want to be healthy. So these are some of the interventions I'm going to use. And is it timely? It's going to occur once a week. So therefore, yes, it is timely. Let me show you a little bit more about what that looks like. I have a SMART goal set for the dimension of emotional wellness. I will take time to care for my emotional needs at least once a week, which means I may need to specifically schedule some of that. Now, once we have a goal, we're going to have to put some gas to that goal. Just like in a vehicle is not going to move if it doesn't have some gas. Gas is goal action steps. In other words, the steps that we need to take to achieve our goal. So the gas that I'm going to apply to my goal is that I'm going to plan 1 hour of time, tea time, work in my flower garden, read a chapter in my favorite book. I may take a walk out in nature, and I may seek counseling because a lot is happening during this time, and I really want to build my resilience. The obstacles that I may have to overcome: wife and family duties. I have 2 teenagers. I have a ninth grader who is attending high school at home virtually. That's an obstacle. The strategy to overcome that obstacle is that I need to learn to delegate to my family members and plan my work calendar. Plan my calendar in such a way that I can do some of those other interventions. Who are my resources? My husband's my resources. My teenagers in my household's resources. My counselor is a resource. My reward is that I get to spend more time now relaxing and having tea time. Instead of having an hour, my reward will be I'll have more. And my accountability partner is my husband, and me, my business mentor and or a counselor. So in developing a resilience personal wellness plan, you have to set a specific goal and then put gas or action steps to those goals. Now, I know I talk a lot about drinking tea, and I've done some research in relationships to the health benefits of tea. So I had to tell you information about that as well. So tea, of course, is full of antioxidants. It's good as far as giving you more liquid. It speeds your metabolism, lowers cholesterol. There's just so many great things about tea. This is one things I love to help develop my resilience, as while I'm meditating, while I'm reading, and it is good from a food perspective. So I certainly wanted to be able to share that piece with you. Building resilience. It's not a overwhelming task to be able to do that. We first of all must understand that we may have burnout, we may have stress, we are dealing with compassion fatigue, and it's okay as healthcare individuals for us to understand that we're dealing with these and that perhaps we need help. We cannot care with compassion if we are suffering ourselves. So it's most important as faculty for you to recognize that, yes, grading one more test, doing one more lecture, this is overwhelming and you need help. We have to incorporate all of the 8 dimensions within our lifestyle. Those dimensions of wellness related to finance, intellectual, occupational, social, emotional, all of those dimensions into our lifestyle. and be mindful of how we move forward with those. Thank you very much. I appreciate having this opportunity to speak with you. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Thank you, madam. Now I invite Sujaya Lakshmi Madam Devaraya Samudram to extend her regards to the speakers.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Namaste. I want to thank Miss Lily Hill. Thanks a lot. You did a wonderful job. You know, the time in US is 11:35. So usually by this time, people are sleeping. So
Yes.
above and beyond, stayed awake and shared your expertise, knowledge. You gave a lot of practical tips, which is very much needed the present day. Thank you so much for doing this presentation. So you shared your love towards global love, compassion, and caring. Thank you so much. We are so proud of you. Thank you for your service. We are very much honored and, very much grateful to you. Thank you, Dr. ANURADHA, for helping us to organize, this international collaboration. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. So we would thank to madam to enlighten us with their valuable words. Thank you, madam. Now it's a session for queries. So if anybody having queries, questions means you can please ask. Is there any queries?
Okay.
If you're having any doubts or queries, please ask.
Thank you, madam, for delivering important information for us by spending your valuable time. It's my privilege to represent questions on behalf of the participants of this session. Dear participants, it's the time to clarify your doubts. If you have any doubts, means you can represent, that means you can share in the YouTube comments and also in the chat box.
I was wondering, where is the chat box? I haven't seen it. So I don't know whether participants have the chat box. Only we could see that raising the hand, then we have to unmute them, then they will be able to ask question. I think that's the way to do it. Participants, if they can see their name and raise their hand, you can unmute them.
So,
Raising the hand, then we have to unmute them.
Ma'am, 1 minute, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm very happy to participate in this. Ma'am, I have one doubt. I want to listen once again this ikigai, ma'am. This is a Japanese word, no?
Yes. Ikigai is a Japanese word.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, I want the meaning of this word, ma'am.
Okay. The meaning of that word, ikigai, it means about, I got to flip my paper. It really means having a zest, having a love of life, a passion for life. It is the one thing that gives you excitement. in life. That's basically essentially the meaning of it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
You're,
much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. So all comments they are giving that it was a clear explanation and a clear view on this particular topic. So all I think so all them of understand. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Next, Divya ma'am can carry out the session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for enlightening with your valuable information. Next, I would like call upon our beloved principal, madam, to read out the profile of next speaker. Thank you, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
I think Anuradha, you have to unmute.
I feel it a privilege to read out the brief profile of Mrs. Vijaya Chadram. Miss Vijaya Chadram graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from College of Nursing, Osmania University in 1980. Subsequently, she graduated with a Master's in Nursing from Duke University in 2013. Later, Miss Vijaya retired as a Clinical Trials Operations Manager from Duke Cancer Institute in 2019. Her areas of nursing background include teaching, medical surgical nursing, neurosurgical nursing, cardiology and oncology research. It's my privilege to announce that today's session by Ms. Vijaya on clinical research nursing, history and basics you need to know will enlighten the participants. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
We are able to
Thank
see.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning to everyone and welcome. I'm excited to see such a large group of nursing professionals at this early in the morning. I know it's early morning for some of you, and Saturday is a holiday for us here too. Thanks for joining me, and it was a nice introduction, and thanks to Dr. SHARAF. And today I will talk about the clinical research nursing history and basics and research related to COVID-19. And as Dr. SHARAF introduced, I did it's just nostalgic to see my old College of Nursing there, Osmania University. So I posted those pictures there, but I have a bachelor's and master's in nursing. And this is my background. Teaching about 7 years in India and rest of it 32 plus years here in US. I have no financial or intellectual conflicts to disclose, including SVCN. This is totally my work and slides. Pardon me? So let's jump into the meeting. So I will start with this quote from a Nobel Prize recipient, Albert Einstein. He got Nobel Prize for physics. This is what he said about research. If we knew what it was we're doing, it would not be called research, would it? He's right. Research is nothing but a hypothesis-driven experiment. We don't know what to expect until the experiment concludes. And sometimes experiments explode, causing disasters, and sometimes they lead to wonderful discoveries. So I like this quote from him. Even after 20 plus years in research, I do feel like I really don't know much about research. This is our agenda for today. Brief introduction to clinical research nursing, history of clinical research nursing, and the role of Food and Drug Administration in research here in US, and facts about COVID-19, and a brief list of clinical trials that's available, and the role of a database called clinicaltrials.gov. And if we still have time, we'll go through some research ethics. So what is clinical research? It is a healthcare science, just like nursing, it is a science, healthcare science, to determine safety and efficacy of medications, devices, and diagnostic products. This could be for preventing diseases, treating diseases, or diagnosing them, or maybe just for symptom relief. So that's what, in a nutshell, clinical research means. So what is a clinical trial, or what is a study, research study means? The research study or clinical trial means it tests how well a new medical approaches work in humans. These studies test new methods of screening, prevention, diagnosis, or treatment of various agents or drugs in various diseases. Clinical trials are the final step in a long process that begins in the lab. Sometimes it takes anywhere from 5 to 20 years to come up with a drug that works efficiently in humans. So it is a long road to start a clinical trial. So where did it begin? It began in 1747. Dr. James is a Navy doctor in British Army. So he was sailing with the British sailors and he noticed mortality rates are really high in soldiers from scurvy. So his hypothesis was citrus fruits cured scurvy. So he divided the soldiers with scurvy into groups, and he gave 2 oranges and 1 lemon every day for a group of soldiers. Surprisingly, after 2 weeks, the soldiers in that group did very well. Scurvy was gone, and they were able to go back to their duties. So that's how he said, you know, his hypothesis was proven. But the thing is, in 1747, no one knows that the citrus fruits have vitamin C in them. The vitamin C was not discovered until 1930, almost 200 years after. But with the little knowledge he had, he was able to prove that citrus fruits are helping scurvy. It doesn't matter the science behind it, the vitamin C was discovered later on. So that was the first published clinical research in history. So a little bit about the phases of clinical trials. Clinical trials are done in baby steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can't just jump into running instead of standing up and walking first. So the phase 1 is done in small groups, maybe 20 or 80 subjects. We call research participants subjects. We don't call them patients. They're volunteers or research subjects or research participants. So these phase 1 studies are mainly to determine what is the safe dose. Is it 20 milligrams the safe dose or 40 milligrams the safe dose? How much a human can tolerate this particular drug and what is the dose? That's what it is done, just simply to see how much dose of that particular drug a human being can tolerate without having any fatal side effects. So, and also decide the route of administration. Is it absorbed better given orally, or is it absorbed better intravenously or subcutaneously? So this is all decided in the phase 1 study. So mainly to evaluate the safety of the particular drug. That's why the sample sizes are so small. And if the safety is compromised and there are some fatal events in this population, the study is going to stop right there. It's not going to move any further. They may try a different dose or different formulation or different route, but not the same factors they tried the first time. Then the study moves to phase 2, which is done in a large group, several hundreds. This is mainly, again, to evaluate the safety and also efficacy. Efficacy is the drug working for the intended disease or not. So those are the two things mainly tested in phase 2. So if they see any little efficacy and not so bad safety events, then they move on to phase 3, which is a bigger study that is a large group. Several hundreds to several thousands are enrolled in these kind of clinical trials, maybe under 10,000 or more. These trials compare the new treatment with the current standard of care treatment. For example, if for breast cancer, if you have drug A as a current treatment and somebody is testing drug B, then they randomize the patients to A and B and try to give both drugs to see if drug B is better than A, or is it less efficacious than A, then they will drop that. The phase 4 trials are drug device intervention. The drug goes to the market, it is approved by FDA, and it is prescribed, but the drug is used in the general population versus being used in the clinical trials, which is very controlled population. So these trials mainly evaluate further safety of the approved drugs or commonly used drugs. So the next is, what is clinical research nurse? It is a specialty, just like critical care nursing is a specialty, emergency department nursing is a specialty. So clinical research nursing is a specialized practice of nursing with a focus on care of the research participants. The clinical research nursing incorporates human subject protection, care coordination, and contribution to clinical science. So in next this wheel here explains that clinical research nursing essentially has 5 domains. So each domain has a role or a list of functions that the clinical research nurses or nursing is required to perform. So of course, the first and foremost is the human subject protection. So under this domain, nursing or the clinical research nurses give direct or indirect participant care. And also they like to implement the completion of the clinical trial. This is from A to Z, start to finish. And main thing, human subject protection is by obtaining informed consent form from the subject. So all research is voluntary. So all participants have to sign a consent which has what drug is being used or what procedures are done and how many times the blood's been drawn or what tests are done. So everything is detailed in that consent and the participants have to sign that. And also the physicians or the clinical research nurses check their eligibility, if they're eligible to go on the clinical trial. For example, the breast cancer patients need to have certain measurements for their tumor, and if they don't meet that measurements, they're not eligible. So same thing, they have some eligibility criterion going forward to enroll the patients. If they don't have those, and they won't be enrolled. So then research nurses also administer clinical trial therapies and also assess the risks, collect all the data for side effects and such. This is under all human subject protection domain. The next one is care coordination and continuity. So just remember, patients or the research subjects are human beings, and they have other comorbidities. Because they're on the research, we can't stop other care. For example, you have a research participant, but he has a kidney failure and he needs to see a nephrologist. So the research nurses has to take care of that care as well. The main key thing for that continuity of care is to educating the research teams and also communicating with all the care providers that involved in providing care for that particular patients, not just the research care. The third thing the research nurses is, this is most attractive to me, is contributing to the science. You know, research nurses can contribute to the science. They can write research protocols. They can submit their grants to obtain funding, collect data and data analysis. And I have seen a lot of nursing professionals publish the results from their research. And they can also mentor other research nurses, making research nursing attractive for them. Also present in the posters or at the society meetings. That was the contribution to the science. But the next thing is clinical practice. Once a nurse, always a nurse. So you can't really deviate from clinical practice or clinical care, even if you're a research nurse. That's the same point as the second domain I was talking about. So although you're collecting more labs, more data, and doing more intervention under research, you still need to continue the regular standard of care for other disease and other elements they have. So the last bucket, last domain is study management. This is like a catch-all thing. This is not necessarily about the patient care or the research participant care, but this is about operational issues like finances. Do we have the budget to run this study? Or do we have clinical agreements with the sponsors? Who is supplying the drug? Do we have enough drug in stock to bring the patients in? Did we train all the research team on what to do with this when the patient comes in? And clinical trial or protocol compliance, are we following exactly what we said in the protocol or not? And are we collecting the accurate and real data in real time? So data is very important in clinical research. So this is a little bit about history of clinical research nursing. I think the first citation about clinical research nursing in literature dates back to 1910 by Nancy Poultney Ellicott. She was the superintendent of nursing at Rockefeller Institute in New York. And so she published a result on pain management. So that was the first one, but later on there are several, 1960, there is a role created here in US for clinical trials nursing, and also Oncology Nursing Society developed a role definition in 2010. So where can clinical research nurses work? I think the opportunities are a lot for them to work. There's various sectors that hire clinical research nurses, or they have opportunities. One of them is federal. Of course, this is the governmental agencies like FDA or NCI or something equivalent to that in India, like public health. Also has some research, surveillance research, and population research studies. The main industry and pharma, these are the companies that develop drugs. If you heard about Novartis or Pfizer, these companies develop new drugs. So there are also a lot of opportunities for clinical research nursing. Academic, of course, in all universities here, research is a critical component. In any academic institutions here in US. I believe it's the same there in India as well. So there is a lot of opportunities there, and private sector. There is some philanthropic organizations, like if you heard about Susan Komen Foundation, or, they also give funding for research, and they hire clinical research nurses to conduct research in their area. So these are a whole list of roles that exist now in US that with clinical research nursing specialty. They can be called, clinical research nurses, clinical research coordinators, or if you're with FDA, you can audit for compliance, IRB coordinators. And most importantly, nurses can also participate in the clinical trials. They can take part in clinical trial as a subject. So that's also, and a patient advocate. So these are all some of the roles that nurses have now here in US. So nurse researcher, this is a very exciting opportunity for nurses that wants to do some research in nursing. They can write their grants and research on their own, and they can create, design, collect data, analyze, report, and publish results. Of course, it has to be in palliative care or symptomatic care. In US, only clinicians or the MDs can do drug or device trials. But other symptom observational studies or symptomatic studies and palliative care studies, there is a lot of research going on in that the nurses can be a nurse researcher's role. So essentially, clinical research nursing requires some additional skills. When we graduate from college, you have the basic nursing skills to take care of the patients. Essentially, you just improve upon those skills more when you get into clinical research nursing, because it is a specialty care. And another thing is you need to know about a whole lot of regulatory knowledge, or how to conduct research and what are the rules and regulations in research. So you have to have all that knowledge in addition to taking care of the patient care. So how is it different? Clinical practice, how is it different from clinical research? Clinical practice, when we graduate, we provide established treatments. For example, if you have aspirin, you know how much dose to give and what elements that aspirin is given. It's already in place, the guidance. We always have established approved therapies, dose and age, and everything is written. So physicians can prescribe and we can just practice and administer those. But in clinical research, it's different. The drugs used in there are not necessarily approved for use in the general population. So there is a protocols which sometimes could be from anywhere from 50 to 200 pages that the research nurses need to follow. You have to just follow A to Z what's in the protocol. If you even miss one step, it's called deviation and violation, and then the data is all skewed and you can't really do much with it. It's waste of a lot of resources. So that's essentially the main difference is clinical practice is established and we follow the established treatments, and clinical research is we're trying to establish treatment. So we're collecting all the data so we can prove that this treatment is going to work, and in future it's going to become one of the established treatments. So who oversees all this research? In US, it's US Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. The Food and Drug Administration is responsible for protecting the public health to ensure safety and efficacy. This is the regulatory agency that approves all drugs used in humans and animals here, and also biological products like vaccine or blood products, or you probably heard about convalescent plasma in COVID-19. So all these biological products also must be approved by FDA before they can be used in the standard practice. Same thing, FDA has to approve medical devices and also some food supplies and cosmetics and products that emit radiation, like radiation therapy and such. So the next two slides looks very busy, but I just want you to focus the 4 blocks that have on those. It's very informational. It's like an infographic for how the FDA processes any research. To the left side of your screen, you see preclinical, and the right side, you see clinical. So this is how the research process in a nutshell starts. You see 2 beakers on the left side, that is drug developed. That's like a laboratory, people are developing a compound or a drug, it could be tested on cell lines in the test tubes. That's the basic thing that's done. The next one, as you see a magnifying glass, and there is one, that is the phase 1 of preclinical studies. That's where the animal testing is done. Essentially, they test the compounds on animals like mice, rats, primates, to see if it's safe. Do they have, what side effects they have? Did they tolerate the compound? Then they use that animal data to submit an investigational new drug application to the FDA. This is like asking FDA permission that we did animal research, the data looks good, it's safe, and they provide all the data, and now we want to try in human beings, first in humans. So the FDA approves that, and then it goes to, on the right side of the screen, you see clinical, that is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So then each phase, they have to report to the FDA every year, or even more frequently if something worse happens for the research participants. And the FDA can stop the study in any phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. So it's not a guarantee. So 80% of the drugs in development just stall right here at phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. They don't go any further because of the side effects. So the next one is, if you, again to the left, NDA review, that's the new drug application review. It starts with sponsors submitting all the data from the phase 1, 2, and phase 3 trials to the FDA in an NDA application. So the FDA reviews the application. They also visit the facilities where the drugs are manufactured. So they look at how they're prepared, and there is no mixing of anything. The environment is good, and the drug is not losing its potency. So that's what they do. They also go to the clinical centers where the clinical trials are conducted, and they do audit the data to make sure that data is not falsified and the data is recorded accurately. So if the drug is efficacious and it meets all the criteria, then the FDA approves it for the marketing. That's the step 12. You see drug is approved, and then it's available in the market for the clinicians to prescribe. On the right side, you see post-marketing. This is where the drug is approved and it is used in the general population, but FDA still wants to collect the safety issues. Sometimes when it's used in the general population and millions of people, a lot of side effects or worse side effects could come to notice, FDA's notice, and they can anytime withdraw the drug from the market and recall the drug and collect everything and announce that they're looking at the data after it goes to the market. So from A to Z, FDA, their main goal is to ensure the drugs they put out there are safe for human use. So let's jump into coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19. You probably watched all the statistics, epidemiological statistics on the news, which country has what, how many people are dying and how many are positive. So I kept this slide to the very short, to one slide. Of course, you know, World Health Organization declared it as a pandemic in March 11, 2020. And the transmission is human to human by respiratory droplets. That's why it is going fast or spreading so fast, because we all have to breathe and we all have to sneeze and we all have to cough and we all have to eat. So it's respiratory infections or airborne infections spread really fast because the nature of the disease itself. And the incubation time is 2 to 4 days before they feel sick. And keep in mind that some people are never feeling sick, although they have the virus. And the virus can shed from 10 to 20 days from the beginning of the symptoms start. A viral test is done. It's a diagnostic test to say if the patient or the person has infection. An antibody test will tell you if a person had an infection in the past. So those are two different kinds of tests that's currently being done. But there is no FDA-approved therapeutics or vaccines available here in the US. I can't speak for other countries, but that's what is here. But FDA has issued an emergency use authorization. This is when the FDA says we don't have enough data to approve it, but we're going through a pandemic. So let's see what's the best option we can give for our patients. That's what they use this emergency use authorization card. So they did use that and issued that for convalescent plasma in hospitalized patients. This is where they draw plasma from the patients who recovered from COVID-19 and give that or transfuse that to the hospitalized COVID patients. In theory, that if you recovered, you built in enough antibodies, and antibodies are in the plasma. So by transfusing them, they're just giving a boost of antibodies to these COVID-19 patients, because it takes at least 2 to 4 weeks after the infection for a person to actually make their own antibodies. So the next one is also the same thing. FDA issued an emergency use authorization for the use of remdesivir in hospitalized patients with severe COVID-19. It's a viral, antiviral agent that could be used in patients hospitalized and on ventilators under this emergency use authorization. So that's in a nutshell what's going on here in the US. This is all just a pictographic I posted around the world. There's so many agents, so many vaccines, vitamin C, vitamin D, corticosteroids. There is umpty number of trials going on, but nothing to boast about at this time that they have any efficacy. That's why I didn't go over. It's just to let you know that there is thousands of clinical trials around the world. People are trying hard to come up with a treatment. So for now, because we don't have a treatment, only option we have, and the best option, is prevention. So wash hands often with soap, water, or hand sanitizer, cover mouth and nose with mask, cover your coughs and sneezes, and keep physical distance, avoid close contact, don't go in groups, gatherings, and also clean any disinfectant or any frequently touched surfaces daily. So that's the best option we have until we find a vaccine or a treatment. So this is another exciting news that FDA issued an emergency use authorization for an antigen test using a testing card. Maybe you all know, like the pregnancy test. It's like, a little tube that shows negative for no pregnancy or positive for pregnancy. It's like a testing card, and it can be, the results are generated within 15 minutes. So when the patient with any COVID symptoms goes to the doctor, they can swab the patient's nose and twirl that on the test card and wait for 15 minutes. And if you see one line, it's negative. They don't have the virus. 2 lines, it's positive. Again, there is not enough data for FDA to approve this. So this is only for emergency use. Here, what they're doing is, if they're positive, they're still doing the traditional lab test, which takes 3 to 6 days to get the results. But if it's positive, at least they know that they should isolate, given that there are some false positive tests. So it will be marketed in the US, so the clinicians can use beginning of October 2020. So this is another resource that I just love, clinicaltrials.gov. It's a database for clinical trials conducted around the world. There is about 350,000 studies in there when I checked yesterday before I drafted this slide. And 3,100 studies ongoing around the world just for COVID-19, not just for the treatment, even for how to test the patients and stuff. So I found 32 studies for COVID in India. So this is the one that it attracted me, that's mainly preventive. This is, the sponsor is Bharat Biotech International Limited, and they're collaborating with Indian Council of Medical Research. And it is a vaccine study, whole virion inactivated CoV-2 vaccine, but it is in healthy volunteers. The study is designed to evaluate the safety and tolerability and immunogenicity of 3 vaccines, 3 investigational vaccine and 1 placebo. So they have 4 groups. 3 groups get the vaccine investigation, 1 group just normal saline or something, sterile water as a placebo. So it's 2 doses, 2 weeks apart. And that study is actually taking healthy volunteers at Nizam's Institute of Medical Sciences in Hyderabad, if anybody is interested. So I thought that was really good. Maybe we know the results by end of this year. Maybe they pick 1 vaccine out of these 3 groups to go into phase 2 trial or phase 3 trial. So ethics, I don't want to go a whole lot about ethics. This is a chronological list of what happened in research ethics starting from the 1900s. Unfortunately, all bad things happen from people with power and misconduct. So there's a lot of bad things happen in research. A Nuremberg Code, they were not consented. There were concentration camp prisoners in Germany, and they tested all kind of stuff that no one need to go through those. And then they came up with, after the end, all the physicians who conducted those research on these subjects without consent were prosecuted. And that's when they decided, no, every time a volunteer participates, they should submit an informed consent. We should tell them it is research and they're used as a subjects. So this is another one, Nuremberg Code. And Declaration of Helsinki, this is also a World Medical Association, just to provided some guidance on how to do subjects on human research, human subjects. The main thing I think is the Belmont report. It has 3 principles. I think if you don't remember all those chronological things, if you remember these 3 ethical principles, that's really valuable. The first one is respect for persons. It doesn't matter their patient or friend or whoever it is. I think it's a basic human concept to respect anyone. Respect means, in this context, telling them what you're doing as far as the research, and consenting them, and let them, it's their option to participate or not. So that in itself is a respect for persons. The next one is beneficence, which is do not harm. If you know a drug is going to kill them in first 3 minutes, or they're going to have a bad anaphylactic reaction that was tested in animals, just don't try it. And also try to maximize the benefits and minimize the possible harms. The last one is justice. That's equitable selection. What they mean is we should have human research participants from a general population. For example, if you're the PI, you can't just gather up all your cousins and relatives and enroll in the study. That's not equitable selection. So that's what they mean. They just treat everyone fairly and then enroll the subjects from general population. So these are the basic principles. And if you don't remember anything, just remember that they need to get an informed consent form prior to doing any research. So ethical conduct of research, who needs to follow this? I think everybody needs to follow this. Nurses, doctors, including the research participants, everybody needs to follow that. Of course, there is a governing body, FDA. They also audit. And if there is research misconduct, they take medical licenses from the clinicians or the nursing licenses. And that's the practice here. It could be a little different in India. So research participants are, contributing to something very valuable. They're putting their life on the line. So we have to respect them. And because they are giving their valuable time and body for the greater good of the society. So the take-home points from this 40 minutes or 30 minutes, I know I talk really fast. Clinical research is critical for advancement of science and healthcare. Yeah. And research regulations are complex and they vary by the country. So no FDA-approved therapeutics or vaccines. Best course of action for us now during this pandemic is robust preventive measures. Stay home, stay safe. And thank you for your time. I can take questions if anyone have any.
Thank you, madam. It's a really thought-provoking speech. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam. The overall session was very informative for us. So 2 more questions from the participants, madam. So first question was, what is federal opportunities?
Oh, what are federal opportunities? My friend told me to clarify that. She's right. She's smarter than me. Federal means government funding. We call it federal funding here. Like in India, if you have a public health funding for some researchers, and that's what I mean, federal funding. And we have federal agencies. Example, Food and Drug Administration is a government funded agency. And if you get a job or funding from them, that is federal.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question. So can you explain clinical trials in India? It means at what extent the clinical trials are going in India, ma'am?
So as far as I only looked up for COVID-19, and that's the only one vaccine trial I have seen that I mentioned in my talk from the Bharat something. That's the sponsor. That's the pharma company who is actually manufacturing the vaccine and also conducting the clinical trial. But other studies that we have, 32 or more, they're mostly observational and population science studies, like how many are above 65 that had COVID-19 tested positive, or how many had mortality rate, how many children under 18 was. So there's mostly observational. That's the only one I found with vaccine. And there is another radiation study that if the COVID-19 patients had pneumonia also, this is bacterial pneumonia. So they're treating them with low dose radiation. So there is another clinical trial for that ongoing in India. So those are the two that I found related to COVID-19. But if you're looking for a certain disease like breast cancer or prostate cancer or something else, that clinicaltrials.gov is a search engine. So you can go and put your, you can say, I want to find a trial that's run in Hyderabad on breast cancer. And then you can put in, I can travel under 50 miles or 100 miles, and they'll give you the list if there is one available. If there is nothing available, you don't see anything in the results. So that's a very informative tool if anybody wants to look for, especially for cancer treatments. There is a lot of cancers out there, doesn't have any approved treatments. The only option for them would be clinical trials. So they can do their search and find out if there are any other clinical trials in the particular disease or condition that one want to look for.
Thank you, madam. So the session was very useful for us and it was very wonderful. And all of the most comments they commented that very clearly explained and we got more information and it was very useful for us. Thank you, ma'am.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a good
Good
evening.
morning, ma'am.
Bye.
Good morning, ma'am. Madam, in research, especially in South India, there are many boundaries is there for the nursing to conduct any research. In USA, how, madam, like that only?
Well, tell the truth, it's not easy here either. But I think people always push the envelope. You know, if you just sit there and don't do anything, well, you not going to accomplish anything. So there are overachievers and they push the envelope, and that's how here we have a lot of nursing research. It could be more difficult there in India, but I think given that the enthusiasm and all the advanced education now going on within nursing, I think I can see a good future that some of the people there are also pushing the envelope and then getting some nursing research done.
Yes, madam. Hope for that. Thank you, madam. Mrs. Lily A. Hill, ma'am, and Miss Vijay Chedar, madam. Really, we are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experience, madam. It was really lively class. Thank you so much, madam.
You're welcome. Now I'm going to go to sleep. Bye.
Any questions? Any other questions from participants?
No, ma'am.
If anybody wants to share their experience, you can share among the participants.
Feedback will come.
Madam, we are not hear you, ma'am. Unmute, ma'am.
Whom we are asking? I think Anuradha, you need to unmute.
Yes, feedback link.
Yes, ma'am. You can carry on, ma'am.
My special thanks to Dr. Sujay Lakshmi Garu for giving your precious time and for your continuous support, encouragement, help, for everything. Can you able to hear my voice?
Yeah.
Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, it's audible. Good morning, Anuradha ma'am.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. Fine, ma'am. I'm Beulah from Hyderabad.
Yeah, I have called you. I have invited you all since you are
Thank
all our well-wishers. How is the lecture? How is the event?
Thank you.
Okay, anyone wants to share your experiences?
Excuse me, madam. So in YouTube comments, a lot of members asking about feedback links. So we may pass the feedback links to your mails, and also who are the participants yesterday also participate. For them at the end of the session, we are going to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I would like to call upon Mrs.
Yes,
Nasma Sanji, Vice Principal, Sri Vidya Niketan College of Nursing, to convey the vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Respected dignitaries, colleagues, and students, good morning to one and all. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Firstly, I would like to thank our management for giving this opportunity to conduct this and organize this international webinar. I take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude to Dr. Sujay Lakshmi ma'am for her constant support to organize this international webinar. Thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mrs. Lily A. Hill ma'am for sharing her expertise knowledge. Thank you very much, ma'am. I am very thankful to Ms. Vijay Chadram ma'am for her excellent explanation regarding clinical research nursing and current information related to COVID-19. Thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. S. ANURADHA ma'am, for her initiation and continuous encouragement in professional upgradation. And I'm also thankful for all the participants who have participated and made this event grand success. Thank you all. Thank you, madam.
Okay, madam. We'll see tomorrow, madam. By
All the participants, yeah. Tomorrow also there is a session, very interesting one. All of you please attend tomorrow also, all the participants.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. We enjoyed. We love to have this collaboration. I want to thank my colleagues in US, Ms. Chadaram and Ms. Hill. It's 12:31 in the morning for us, so they are really tired. And I want to announce that today is Ms. Hill's birthday and my 31st wedding anniversary. I'm celebrating my 31st wedding anniversary with all of you. Ms. Hill has celebrated her birthday with all of you. Thank you so much.
Happy anniversary.
Join us tomorrow. I'll be doing the presentation. Thank you. And good night.
We are waiting for your presentation, ma'am.
Thank you. It's my honor and privilege. So I feel it's, I'm part of SBC and your college. So every year I come, I see all of you and share my whatever I know. So this is the way I share my personal experiences to my country, India. I'm so happy and privileged. Thank you.
Thank you.
It shows your greatness.
Thank you. It's my humbleness because you guys are giving us, opportunities, so I'm able to share. So I'm very privileged and very, very happy. Thank you. By seeing all the names, some of my students from here have joined. Some of my friends also from US, they are there. So I want to especially thank them. And I want to thank some of my college friends from Hyderabad, like Saraswati is there and some other people are also there. So it's like a reunion. Rajeshwari and some other people, I saw those names. Thank you guys for supporting. Enjoy. These are really great topics. Thank you for choosing such a wonderful topics. I congratulate Anuradha ma'am and Tejavati and other staff like Nazma, all of you. You did.
Thank you, madam.
Awesome. Even the technical staff, I want to thank them. Yeah. And some people could not join, so maybe we should think of some other way to help them. Some of them, they were texting me, they were asking how to join. They could not join. So. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, madam.
Okay, we'll end at the program.
Ma'am, tomorrow by 8:15, shall we start, ma'am?
It's fine with me. Yeah, whatever time you guys decide, I'm okay.
Same like today, madam.
Fine. That works.
We'll start by 8:50.
Yes, ma'am. Sure, madam.
According to madam's convenience.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Whatever you guys tell, I'll be ready. Because it's night for me, so whatever time.